Hello, everyone, and welcome to Money Matters with Doug Jones, the personal finance show focused on moving you forward financially. I'm Doug Jones. Is anyone considering a home renovation or a home repair this summer? If so, you're not alone. There's a poll out that 74% of Canadians are planning some sort of repair or renovation to their home. And so the question is, before you embark on such an activity, what should you be considering? Have you thought about budgets, permits? Can you do it yourself? Do you need to bring in an expert? And so for today's show, I thought we'd bring in a couple of experts to assist us in that discussion. So we're joined by Sue Cerilli, who's the president of the Simcoe County Home Builders Association, and by Ryan Johnson, who's a partner at Alair Homes. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, Doug.
Thanks for having me, Doug. Happy to be here.
No, I'm glad you guys could join us. So before we start into the show, I thought I'd get you to explain what it is exactly you do. So Sue, can you tell us what the Simcoe County Home Builders Association is?
Sure, Doug. Simcoe County Home Builders Association started back in 1953, and we are the voice of the residential home building industry in this area and have been since that time. We are a local association of the Ontario Home Builders Association, which has 37 locals and approximately 4,000 members. And as well, we are a member of the Canadian Home Builders Association, which consists of approximately 9,000 members. With over 60 years of experience in new construction and home renovations, our 100 plus members are comprised of builders, developers, renovators, trade contractors, professional services, and suppliers. Our association provides our members with continuous support and strong presence at the community, municipal, provincial, and national levels, and the ability to connect with industry colleagues through networking, meetings, and events. Our membership also exists to provide consumers with quality, affordable housing through professionalism, education, research and development, proactive legislative involvement, and consumer advocacy.
Wow, that's quite a lot of stuff you're doing for everybody. Ryan, can you tell us about Alair Homes? Because I thought you were local to Barrie, but that's not the case. So tell us about it.
Well, we are actually local to Barrie, Doug. I myself have been a part of the Simcoe County Home Builder Association for several years. Alair Homes is a home renovator and custom home builder. So all we focus on is custom homes, renovations, and we do have a local, we are a national company and even international. We have offices in the States. We are local to every community that we serve. They are privately owned and operated. So we are just as much a local company as you would expect. So, that's pretty much what we do.
Yeah, I think you said there's 140 locations?
Yeah, about 140 locations across North America. Started in Nanaimo, BC, and we even have offices as far south as Sanibel, Florida.
Wow, that's quite large and impressive. Okay, so home renovations. We know that it's a huge industry. In 2019, just over $80 billion was spent in the home renovation business. And from what I've read, all expectations are that for 21, we're actually going to exceed our 19 spend. The survey that came out showed 74% of people were looking at some sort of home repair or renovation. And I think the pandemic is really playing into it, because when you looked at where they wanted to spend their money, I saw things like the biggest one was outdoor spaces, renovating. I think that's if you're staycationing now, you want to make it a little bit nicer at home. But then there's the normal things that you'd expect to see, such as bathrooms and kitchen renovations. Ryan, is that your experience? Is that what you're seeing?
Yeah, we saw a huge uptick in home renovation requests. It came about, we figure, about 6 months after the onset of the pandemic. People settled into their homes, and they were able to really reevaluate their living situations and identify the importance of family and the importance of the comfort of your home, more so than ever before. I think this generation has spent more time in their home, especially this last year, than humanity in all time, really. So it's, that home, the safety net that our home has become is now becoming a part of our living needs. And, we need a place to work. We need a place to go to the gym. And we're all identifying these things in our homes, and outdoor space is a huge addition to most people's homes. And you see it almost on every street. You go down every street, there's somebody out redoing their sod, adding landscaping, just increasing the curb appeal of their home, just because that home ownership and that pride of ownership has seemed to have elevated immensely with the onset of the pandemic.
Yeah. So one of the things I read in the survey was what you were just noting. It was all about making the home a nicer place to be. It was enhancing their enjoyment, maybe putting in an office because now they work from home. And what I was surprised about was, home values have been exploding. So I was expecting that right up there, the top was renovations to increase the value of my home. And it looked like that wasn't the main driver. People were still focused on it, but it wasn't the main driver. And I'm guessing you agree with that.
Oh, 100%. It's another thing we're also noticing as a more recent trend, and this is what we're speaking with the Globe and Mail on tomorrow, is the recreation properties are now being completely altered, renovated, upgraded to become permanent homes. So maybe it's a generational cottage that's been in a family for generations. Well, guess what? We can now work from there. There's internet, there's cell service pretty well anywhere in Ontario now, and I can work from my home office. Why not? So we're seeing a huge onset of people moving from the urban centers to the rural areas, especially surrounding lakes. Serenity and that sort of thing has become so much more important now. So we're seeing a huge boom in cottage remodels and recreation home alterations.
Yeah, I'm very familiar with that one. Actually, I have a cottage and I am planning that exact activity of a renovation, but I hope people thought it through because the internet is not as stable as you would think, and the level of amenities aren't quite what we get in larger centers. But the next thing that I think we should talk about when you sort of plan a renovation is what can you do yourself and when do you need to call in an expert? So I actually, throughout university, used to work for a construction company. So I feel I'm fairly handy, but I know there are certain things I'm not going to touch. Electricity be one of the biggest ones. Well, my buddy's an electrician and they called him Sparky when he was learning the trade. And so I think that says it all. So what advice do you have for people on what's a do-it-yourself project versus you better call in an expert?
That's a great question, and we're always happy to help anybody that's considering any sort of remodel to help them really accurately plan the project out, because you're right, people do have different skills and different skill sets and different comfort levels. So we always suggest as your first step to any sort of renovation, big or small, and that's to hire a professional designer, draftsperson, or architect to really identify the major structural components of your home so that, you're not assuming anything. We can't assume that a wall is or isn't load bearing until you bring in an expert to help you design that space. So that's always our first thing is to engage with a professional design team that can help you lead you down that right path. And obviously you have to identify what skills you do have as a individual, because we see it all the time. That the home handyman, they finish the basement themselves with a couple of friends, and when you go down there, you can tell. So I always say stick to your comfort level, and it sometimes pays dividends to pay a little bit more to get professional service, to get professional project, and the quality is going to stand out because you can tell the difference when it's a homeowners doing their own drywalling and they're not drywallers or anything along those lines. We can always tell as professionals. So can consumers. Yeah.
So and I also think that there are certain things that you just probably shouldn't tackle. So, for instance, gas fitting. That's a special license. You can't go touch that yourself. I'm pretty familiar with roofing, but if it's a super steep pitch, given my age, I'm not going up on that roof anymore. And so I do think that there are things people need to consider and what their, as you said, their skill level is and what they could actually get physically hurt doing. So if you're going to go down the road of hiring a contractor, What's your advice? How do you pick the right contractor? What should you look for in that contract?
Well, that's you have to look for a lot of things, and Sue can possibly touch on this. We're active members of a program called Renomark, and it's I believe it's a national program. Sue, if you want to jump in on that one.
It is for sure, Ryan. It's national. It was created back. Renomark was created back in 2001, and it was created by the Canadian Home Builders Association. Renomark identifies professional contractors who have agreed to abide by a renovation-specific code of conduct. Some examples of the codes that these types of renovator contractors are required to abide by are they're, first of all, required to be a member in good standing with their local home builders association and abide by that association's code of ethics. They're also required to provide a written contract, including a scope of work for all jobs. So it's imperative that if a consumer wants to do some sort of renovation, that they have a contract in place, to make sure that they don't, they know what they're getting, they know what they're paying for, they know that certain codes are being abided by, and that the contractor themselves have all of the workplace safety, employer's liability, that sort of thing in place. It's important that the contractor also carry all applicable license and permits. So anything with regards to that is definitely outlined in Renomark, and any Renomark renovator is abiding by those rules. So it's safe for a consumer to actually hire a Renomark renovator.
Well, I think that's really important what you said too about having that they've got the workplace or the WSIB insurance in place. They've got professional insurance in place, because I'm guessing that a bunch of people who do home renovations or maybe bring in someone and pay them cash under the table, they might not be aware of the liability they're putting themselves into if that person got injured on the job and they were effectively deemed the employer. Any comment on that?
Yeah, no, certainly. I can defer to Ryan because, again, he's the expert renovator on the call here. But certainly it's extremely important to know what your insurance covers and what it does not. And if you're hiring somebody without a contract and they fall off your roof, you're going to be liable for that. But Ryan, I'll let you take it from here.
Yeah, like as soon as you, as a homeowner, engage with any sort of contractor or tradesperson, you are now designated as the employer. That like you just stated, Doug, you are the builder essentially. You're the constructor. So what we do in all of our programs and our projects is that we identify that we are the constructor. We hold all the correct insurance. We hold all the correct course of construction insurance to protect our clients from anything that could ever happen to any of the trades that we are hiring. So there's that clear break between homeowner, builder, and sub-trades and suppliers. So that's so important to identify where you are in the totem pole. And the moment you hire a trade directly yourself, you are now essentially deemed the constructor and have to follow all the rules. So do you have the right safety training? Do you have all the WSIB you need to have to make sure your workers are safe? So, you could save a little bit of money, but you don't save a lot, and you are definitely risking a big problem should anything ever go awry.
All right. Well, we're going to go to break now. When we come back from break, let's talk about budgeting for that renovation. Welcome back to Money Matters with Doug Jones. Today we're talking about renovations. There's surveys that show the number of people that are planning a repair or renovation this summer, and it was 74% of the population. So obviously it's a very, very hot topic. And so before the break, we were sort of talking about the necessity of finding a contractor, the right person, what you can do yourself, what you really should leave to the experts. But I think that the next topic we should really go into is budgets, because renovations can cost a lot of money. The pandemic, if the reports in the newspapers and that are all indicating how much lumber prices and other things are increasing. So I think the budget's going to be a key component. There was a survey out there that showed that 76% of the people were going to spend between 1,000 and 10,000, and then it was another 26 were going to go from 10,000 to 25,000. But given what I'm seeing and my understanding of the marketplace, those numbers seemed a little low to me. So Ryan, you're sort of our expert on renovations. Can you tell us if those numbers seem reasonable to you? And next, how important a budget is to the process?
Oh, the budget is pretty much the most important part of the process. But yeah, you're absolutely right. That numbers are extremely low. I think there's more people have done improvements to their home, but then we're also seeing a huge inflow of 6-figure projects, 7-figure projects that have really made a huge part of the demographic where they quite haven't been that high in the past. But yeah, we're seeing a lot of that, $30,000 to $75,000 home renovations. So yeah, the numbers are all correct. And I was just surprised there wasn't actually more people in that lower numbers, because I see everybody's doing something to their home.
So if we're going to start a project, and let's take that cottage renovation you talked about, what's our starting point? Is our budget our starting point? This is how much we can spend. Is our starting point of the design? Like, how do we come up with the budget that as to what we want to achieve?
Yeah, that's a great question. We have a very detailed project protection checklist that we follow, and we follow it in every single project we do. And first step is obviously we have to confirm the viability of the project with your local municipality. We have to find out if there's going to be any restrictions that might exist on that existing property. We have to identify a ballpark budget first thing, so that we can at least see if the project's even feasible. So that's always our step one, is try to confirm, try to build see if there's any restrictions, and then build a preliminary budget just for feasibility purposes. And then from that step, what we need to do is we need to itemize the client's needs, and we have to prioritize what they want, so that we can start creating those designs, so we can start getting the permit drawings, we can start getting more accurate information, because you can't get prices based on square footage. We haven't had two clients that are the same. Every client has different needs, wants, and we have to identify what those are. So to give a ballpark pricing of, here's what the averages are, there's no project that's average anymore, because everybody has unique needs. So obviously that's, the budget is super important, but then now what we need to do is identify the feasibility of it, and then how we properly plan to make sure those clients can actually achieve that budget.
Okay, so what about when you're planning out the budget, you can you map it out, you understand what they're looking for. What about the unforeseen, the cost overruns, the unexpected? I opened up a wall and yikes, a handyman did this before and it's not what we were hoping to find. What about those in a budget?
Yeah, that's another great question. And we see it on so many projects. We go into every project with a contingency. You have to have that 5 to 10% of the overall budget as a contingency. And it's just there for those exact situations. And at the end of the project, if you don't use it, we give those clients that contingency back. And it creates that safety net for them to know that they don't have to be stressed out if something does happen. We just recently renovated a home, and we found a well underneath the front porch that was obviously there for 100 years. Right under the front step. So obviously we had to deal with it, have it decommissioned the right way. So yeah, there's always the contingencies, but then now those clients can actually sleep tonight knowing that we planned for that. And now there is no added extra stress, because there was always a budget line item for them to have that contingency.
Okay, I think that's really important. What about timelines? Because I think a lot of people think, I'd like to put that addition on. I'll call up somebody and we'll start this weekend. And I know that's not the case. So, and I'm wondering if the pandemic has made those timelines even longer. So can you get some information there?
Yeah, I think as we're all settling into our working from home and we're all changing the way we all do business today, we are learning some new efficiencies. So there are some things that are speeding up, believe it or not. We're able to have a lot of our projects that we work through in the planning phase first are getting completed way more efficiently than they were before. Just because the homeowners now are working from home and they're having more time to really accurately plan their project with us. But typically, I always tell people 4 to 6 months is kind of a minimum to plan any sort of remodel, whether it be a kitchen or a bathroom or landscaping, because ultimately we need to find the right people to do the projects. And red flag number one is when a person shows up and I can start tomorrow and I'll take cash. Right? You never want to get into that situation.
What about getting permits? Is that taking longer now with municipalities?
Yeah, it certainly is. But we're finding the lead times are still reasonable because there is so much work involved in the front end of the planning phases with the clients. So when it comes to the municipal, usually we've already completed the drawings, we get the permits in for approvals, and then we continue on with all of the selections. So there's so many selections on any sort of renovation. There could be between 50 and 150 different selection categories, whether it be concrete foundations, framing, roofing, windows, doors. So you think about all the items that are applicable for every project. There's a lot of decisions to be made. So we never want our clients to have to rush those decisions. So a lot of times they're still trying to finalize those final details as we are getting the permits. So it usually it doesn't slow down the process too much, but whenever there's minor variances involved and, they are slower than what they used to be, but you know what, they're working in unprecedented times too. And I think they're all doing a great job, the local municipalities.
So if you're working through your budget, and you're sort of butting up against your upper limits as to what you can do, but you're hoping for a little more. Is there anything you can tell people that they might be able to do as part of the project, or ways for them to do a few things themselves? I'm thinking like painting. Is there things you can recommend for people that they can maybe take on themselves in order to get the big structural and the bigger things done in a contract?
Yeah. We always, we have clients that like to do this all the time. And we just finished a project for a client where they did all the painting themselves. They installed all their flooring themselves. But obviously this is something we need to communicate before you sign a construction agreement with any builder. Don't ever assume that your builder's okay with it, because now essentially that homeowner is now has to work for the builder, because now I have to take responsibility for that homeowner doing the work, which is completely okay. And we're happy to sign off on that order. But it's just something communication is key. So if you do have that skill trait and there is something you want to include and complete yourself in the budget, by all means, just bring it to our attention or your contractor's attention, and just make sure that it's communicated clearly before you jump into any sort of understandings together. So
as we all have limits to our budget, like you said, some renovations are moving into 7 figures. That may have scared some viewers. Given that we all have limits to what we can do on the budget, and let's assume we say, like, I want to tackle this one sort of section at a time. And I did see in some of those surveys that while making the home more livable and amenities was important, 59% were still saying, I want to see the enhanced value. So are there projects that you would prioritize to give them the increased living space, but also a bigger recovery on the value of the home?
Yeah, there's a bunch of things, and this is no secret. Your kitchens, your bathrooms are obviously the number one, but now home work spaces and outdoor living. So curb appeal. What is a person's first impression when they come up and see your home? There's that pride of ownership component. So that's all stuff that homeowners can do themselves. Doing some, adding some trees, some flowers, some planters, doing all that sort of stuff, just putting in that extra tender love and care goes a mile in your home. So, that's always what we recommend is kind of just, try to stick to the things that you can tackle. And then at the end of the day, we want, you should be planning the complete project. So if you don't have the budget to complete everything on your list, at least you can itemize and prioritize and do things in the right order. We recently had somebody say, okay, I want to add a second story to my home, but I don't want to ruin the kitchen because I finished the kitchen last year. We just did it brand new. It's like, well, I wish you had thought this through, because you could have lived with that kitchen the way it was before. And it's really hard to salvage something at this stage. So that's always, talk to your trusted advisor and really understanding the steps involved in the project. And there's just like Sue said, there's so many great Renomark renovators out there that are happy to help and happy to talk you through any sort of remodel, and just itemize, prioritize, and then, create that plan. Because if you don't create a plan, you're essentially planning to fail. So, and we stress that over and over.
What about homeowners that make changes midstream? Because I know that occurs quite often. And they sort of, the impression I get is they think that, well, could you just add that, or could you just change this, was a minor little inconvenience? And maybe you could address that for us.
Yeah, sometimes a minor change could be major, because a minor change to a wall, for example, can you just push that wall back a little bit? Well, what they probably didn't realize is that we were planning on running all the electrical to the second story and the plumbing to the second story through that wall. So what we always want to do is we just, again, communication, get things in writing, and then get everybody involved that change has that is involved in that sort of change order, for example, and then give that client that option. Say, okay, here's the ramifications of making this change. It affects this, and this. What are your thoughts on that? And then allowing them to make those decisions themselves, because they might think, well, it's a small change, could actually be a huge change for structural reasons, for that matter.
Okay, so if people want to get in touch with us, Sue, how do they get in touch with the Simcoe County Home Builders Association?
Simcoe County Home Builders Association, we do have a website, so people can reach out to us that way. And as well, we are heavily involved with social media, so we can be found on Facebook, Instagram, whatnot as well.
And Ryan, how do they get a hold of Alair Homes?
So www.alairhomes.ca, and look for your local office in your region. We service all Simcoe County.
Awesome. So thanks everyone for joining us today. If you have any questions or comments, please go to the Rogers Home Show page and leave us a message. Thanks, and see everyone next time.